There is one investor sitting on over $325 billion in cash right now, and they just wrote a $10 billion check into one of the biggest AI bets in the market. Same week, they bought a home builder for $6.8 billion, and they still have $300 billion left. When you understand why that cash pile exists and what they're waiting to do with the rest of it, it changes how you look at every other decision in the market. That investor is Warren Buffett, and the company is Berkshire Hathaway. We own 30 shares of BRK.B in this portfolio. We bought in at $488.13. It's sitting at $505.74 right now, up 3.6%, while the drone plays have been choppy, and Sentinel-1, last episode's trade, is already up 23% in 2 weeks. Berkshire's doing its thing quietly in the background, and I think most people looking at this stock right now are completely misreading it. Let me explain what I mean. When most people talk about Berkshire, they talk about Warren Buffett, the folksy quotes, the Omaha Steakhouse, the Diet Coke at the annual meeting. That version of the story is real, but it's also a distraction from what this company actually is underneath the personality. Berkshire is a cash-generating machine built on top of some of the most durable businesses in the American economy. Geico, the insurance operation, just had one of its best profitability runs in years after new management came in and actually fixed the pricing model instead of just hoping inflation would slow down on its own. BNSF Railroad moves roughly a quarter of all U.S. freight by ton mile. Not glamorous, not going anywhere. Berkshire Energy owns regulated utilities across multiple states. And then on top of all of that operating engine is a stock portfolio worth somewhere north of $280 billion, anchored in American Express, Coca-Cola, Bank of America, and increasingly Alphabet. That last one is worth spending some time on. Berkshire has been trimming Apple, not a little, aggressively. They went from owning around 900 million shares at the peak to somewhere in the range of 300 million. That is not a portfolio rebalance. That is a philosophical statement about price. Apple is a great business. It is not a great business at any price. And Buffett, who has been in this market since before most of us were born, decided the price stopped being right. At the same time, they've been aggressively building a position in Alphabet, Google's parent. And this is where the Abel era starts to show its teeth. Berkshire first disclosed a stake in Alphabet back in the third quarter of 2025, roughly 17.8 million shares. Then in June of this year, Abel turned that modest opening into something much larger. Alphabet was raising $80 billion in fresh equity to fund the computing infrastructure for its AI build-out. Abel committed $10 billion of Berkshire's cash at a 6.5% discount through a private placement, $5 billion in Class A shares, another $5 in Class C. By the time the dust settled, Berkshire had nearly tripled its Alphabet position to roughly 58 million shares worth close to $17 billion. That makes Alphabet Berkshire's fifth largest holding. And Buffett's reaction to the move? Greg did that faster than I could have done it. This is not a passive bet on a cash flow machine. This is a deliberate, concentrated capital allocation decision. Berkshire buying into the company at the center of the AI infrastructure race at a better price than the open market got. Alphabet dominates search, cloud, and advertising. The AI narrative has created genuine uncertainty about whether Google wins or loses the next decade. Abel looked at that confusion and wrote a $10 billion check at a discount. That is exactly the kind of move that separates great capital allocators from everyone else. Not chasing the headline, buying conviction when the market is uncertain. Now let's talk about the cash, because this is where I think most people are reading the story backwards. $325 billion sitting on the sideline sounds like a problem. The financial media has been writing that version of the story for 2 years straight. Why won't Buffett deploy it? Is he losing his edge? Is Berkshire too big to move? Is this the twilight of the greatest investor of all time? Here's the other way to read it. We talked in the last episode about the Shiller Cape sitting near 42, the same territory it was in right before the dot-com crash. The S&P PE near 32x against a 15-year average of around 20. The market is expensive by almost every long-run measure you want to apply. And Buffett is not confused about this. The man who wrote the book on buying wonderful companies at fair prices is choosing to sit in cash. Not a little cash, $325 billion. That is not indecision. That is the most deliberate investment decision in the world right now. What he's saying, without saying it, is that nothing out there is priced well enough to beat the return on patience. Treasury bills are yielding real returns right now, so the cash isn't just sitting idle, it's compounding while he waits for the right pitch. When the market corrects, and historically it always does, Berkshire will be one of the only institutions on the planet that can move immediately, at scale, into whatever has gotten cheap. That optionality is real, it has genuine value, and it almost never shows up in the way analysts model this stock. Now, the valuation, let's be honest about where BRK.B sits. It's not a screaming bargain at $505. Berkshire themselves has slowed their own buybacks, and when a company that knows its business better than anyone stops aggressively buying its own stock, that's information. It means the price is approaching what they consider fair value, not yet cheap enough to be the obvious best use of capital. But here's what fair but not cheap looks like for Berkshire. You're buying into the cash pile optionality. You're buying into a collection of durable businesses with pricing power across insurance, rail, and energy. You're buying into a stock portfolio managed by the best capital allocator alive, and you're doing it at a moment when the rest of the market is priced for perfection. That asymmetry matters. When things get ugly, Berkshire tends to hold up better than most, and when things are fine, it still compounds. The Abel transition deserves a real look because most of the coverage gets it wrong, and I think that misread is part of why the stock isn't getting more attention right now. Greg Abel is Canadian from Edmonton, Alberta. He's not a Wall Street guy. He came up through the energy business, built Mid-American Energy from a regional utility into a massive operation, and Berkshire acquired it in 1999. He ran what became Berkshire Hathaway Energy for 2 decades. Buffett named him Successor publicly in 2021, and when Buffett stepped back as CEO, Abel took the seat. Here's what the market is getting wrong about him. The bear case on Abel is that he's an operator, not an investor. Buffett was the genius capital allocator, the one who looked at a balance sheet and saw value nobody else saw, made the big acquisition calls, built the stock portfolio. Abel walks factory floors. He visits subsidiaries. He's operational in a way Buffett never really was. And the worry is that the investing side of Berkshire, the part that made it famous, goes on autopilot or gets handed down to the 2 portfolio managers, Ted Weschler and Todd Combs, who are good but are not Warren Buffett. That's a fair concern. But here's what I'd push back on. Look at what Abel has actually done since taking the seat. He bought home builder Taylor Morrison for $6.8 billion, and then the very same week, he dropped $10 billion into Alphabet at a private placement discount as part of the AI infrastructure raise. These are not small, cautious moves from a guy afraid of the investing side of the business. This is an operator who clearly thinks in terms of capital allocation. Buffett himself said at the most recent annual meeting that Abel understands capital allocation as well as he does. That is not a throwaway line. Buffett does not hand out compliments on capital allocation. And his reaction to the Alphabet move said it all. Greg did that faster than I could have done it. Abel also sold his personal stake in Berkshire Hathaway Energy back to the company for around $870 million, and he didn't cash out. He put it back into Berkshire stock. That's a man who believes in what he's running. The culture of decentralization and accountability that made Berkshire what it is didn't walk out the door. It's embedded in 50 years of management decisions, compensation structures, and the kind of people Berkshire attracts and keeps. Abel isn't trying to be Buffett. He's running the machine Buffett built. And from what's visible in the operating results right now, the machine is running well, insurance profitable, railroad doing what railroads do. The transition risk the market is pricing in may be exactly the kind of overblown narrative that creates the entry point. So where does that leave us in the Paper Millionaire portfolio? 30 shares at $488.13, currently valued at $15,172, up $528 since we opened the position. We're not adding here. Cash is at $2, fully deployed everywhere else. But we're not selling either. Berkshire at this price, in this macro environment, while sitting on the largest cash reserve in the company's history, is exactly the kind of position this experiment is built around. Patient, durable, Not exciting. Exactly right. The drone plays are volatile. Sentinel-1 is up 23% in 2 weeks, and that trade is working. Those are the ones that make for good content. But Berkshire is the one that lets you sleep. And in a market priced the way this one is, the ability to sleep is genuinely underrated. Set up your own paper portfolio and follow along. Place your own trades alongside ours, and let's find out together whether patience beats momentum over the next 12 months. That comparison is going to teach you more about how you actually think about risk than anything else you could do with 20 minutes a week. Dumb money, smart moves, the 100K experiment continues.